what's happening? Welcome to the program. Here it is. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It's a podcast about video games. I'm Jeff Gerstmann, your host for this week's installment of the program. And we'll be talking about the latest in video game news, as well as some impressions of some recent releases. Hi, how are you doing? We're back in the we're back up in this motherfucker. Hi, it is Tuesday. May is almost over. I was about to say happy MAME release week, but I believe they are taking the month of May off to make some larger changes. So no new MAME. No new MAME this month. I'm sorry to say. If you're here for the latest in MAME news, then let's get that out of the way up top. But yeah, that's how I mark the passage of time. Do I need to update my MAME set? No? Okay, good. So now I'm all messed up. The Switch 2 is coming real soon now. Does it feel like a new console is going to be launched? I'm having trouble connecting with the launch of the Switch 2 for reasons that are entirely related to me having done this for as long as I've done this. It's something that, like, I don't know if other people are feeling the same way, but for different reasons. But yeah, it's a very strange, release. So so this is the reason. I have received a console from Nintendo prior to its release, with the exception of the first one, which I got kind of midway through the cycle. But since the Super Nintendo, I received a Super Nintendo in the mail from Nintendo. And since then, I have had pretty early access to every single device that they have made. Be that the Virtual Boy, the Pokemon Mini, top to bottom. And this is different. Some of it's different because, I think that, I don't keep in contact with Nintendo as closely as maybe I did a handful of years ago. Just by virtue of me being a single person as opposed to having a squad of people. The outreach is a little bit different on my part. I'm not. I guess what I'm saying is this is not me necessarily complaining or prescribing blame in any sort of way. It just seems like things are very different this time. And as such, it kind of just doesn't feel real. And that's just, it's kind of just it's a very strange feeling. And my understanding is that I am certainly not alone in that. It is not, I don't know who's getting Switch 2s prior to launch. I don't know if any are going out. I would have to imagine that there would be a limited number, going out to the largest outlets and also probably mainstream press in a newspaper setting, like places where they would want to make sure that people who might not know will find out about it. So like, people that write about games for newspapers and more mainstream publications, I think would be more likely to get one than, the ninth largest website or whatever's left in the world of video game coverage these days, right? So, I think that's probably people in the chat keep saying influencers, and I can't, I'm not gonna, so no, I don't think that many are, I don't think that stuff is going out the way you would think it would. I really think that Nintendo has taken the approach of every one of these things that we don't put onto shelves every single one of these we send out for free is one that like is not being purchased by someone who really wants one. And I think that, like, I look at it and go, like, you know what, this is, I think that's probably the right move, right? Ultimately, the Nintendo Switch 2 will sell out at launch regardless of any review or anything like that. They don't need the help. I think that, you know, there's a certain, like, element of, like, well, it's you know, it's another sign of a lack of support to this segment of you know, game coverage and whatever else that, you know, is a little bit weird, but and I think that has knock-on effects that would affect them negatively down the line. But at the moment right now, you know, I think it's very easy for them to say, like, no, we're not gonna do this. And I think Nintendo's relationship with sending stuff out has always been a little weird and has only gotten weirder over the years, because of, well, a few different things. Like Nintendo, you know, being Nintendo and being the way that they launch and being the way that they operate and being the way that they view the world from Kyoto, they don't really care about it the same way that a lot of other publishers, or the way you think that, like, a company would, about, like, getting this stuff out and getting reviews and getting things out early and what have you. I think that they've got a real, like, anti-leak, like, it's funny, like, they are the company that I think most of all has been like, well, we don't want to send a lot of these out because we want to make sure that this stuff doesn't leak or whatever, especially at a time over the last generation where you know, those leaks would have material effects in terms of piracy and such. But, like, that would happen anyway. You know, there would be instances of, like, they've really locked down on it. Like, some guy leaked a bunch of Pokemon assets before, like, breaking embargo on it, and everyone lost their minds, and then no one got anything early after that, and you know, or the list got a lot shorter after that, and then, you know, like, they've just been, you know, chomping at the bit to just cut everyone off, I think. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think that that's necessarily a factor here. I think it's really just like, hey, there's, you know, there's just a lot of, like, yeah, I think that this has been something that I think Nintendo has been basically okay with for a long time. It's not just necessarily a new thing, but, you know, the factors around the launch of the Switch 2 in terms of getting things out, or the tariffs and the launch quantities being what they are, and all of that other stuff. I think that there's just a lot of stuff around that I think makes it very easy for them to want to just hold off and hold back, because everything has been so weird. And every unit they get into the country now, you know, they announced the same day that all the tariff stuff happened, right? So I imagine that if they weren't already gun shy about it, that probably made it a reality for them. I mean, think about it in terms of, like, probably around the time they were starting to plan or figure out, like, the final steps of whatever a review process might have been. They announced the console, a bunch of tariffs roll out, and suddenly every console they want to import to send out to anyone in the industry, valued business partners, people that review video games, influencers, top to bottom, anything they want to give out for free, they will still have to pay the tariff on top of the manufacturing cost to import that. So it's like Nintendo's costs to send out units also went up when all of that stuff happened. And, you know, the things are not, like, things are not where they were at the time of, you know, the launch of the tariffs. You know, some of that stuff has changed, though, seemingly on a whim, and who knows, and blah blah blah. You know, there's just a lot of there's a lot of stuff there that I think probably was something of a factor. in some of this, but also I think that, they're a company that really wants to stop scalpers and really wants to put as many of these things into hands. They are very much the company that is still thinking about families and children and this and that. And, I think it's very easy for them to sit there and go like, well, every one of these we send to any single person who is going to, especially, like an influencer who's going to go like, oh, cool. And then throw it somewhere. Like, like all of that stuff, factors in where they're just like those are kids that are not getting Switch 2s because we decided to send them to this person and that person and everyone else. And so my understanding is that across the board, that a lot of that stock is very limited too, in terms of just like normally when there's a console rollout, any publisher that is going to be publishing a launch game, like there's a lot of units to go around to people that are, working to make games for the system and what have you. And I don't think I think that has changed quite a bit as well. So I'm curious, I would imagine that what we're going to see is sometime next week, IGN will be like, here you go. Because if anyone's going to get one, I would have to imagine it would be them. But I feel like I saw, maybe it was Dan Stapleton or somebody kind of mirroring some of the talk around like, yeah, people aren't necessarily getting them. So maybe they're not getting one either. And I think that's ultimately what I want. As a person who's been on both sides of this, as a person who has worked for the largest gaming website in the world at times, and as an independent whatever, all I've ever really wanted is parity and something that resembles fairness. When a bunch of people get them and then a bunch of people don't, I think that's a shit situation. Especially in a case where the people getting them are going to be the larger outlets that would have budgets that would let them pre-order a bunch and try to get as many as they can and whatever and do their thing. Whereas normally it's the smaller outlets that are kind of getting the shaft on some of this stuff. But at the end of the day, also the market or the landscape for what we think of as the press has never been murkier and weirder and all of that stuff. So, this is all kind of a big nothing at the end of the day. Like, I don't, I am not kind of shocked that this sort of stuff has gone the way it has and that people are starting to talk about like, oh, it doesn't seem like a lot of Switch 2s are going to be out for review purposes. Maybe things will change for them after launch and they'll be a little more free to send them around, or, like when some stock situations change or whatever. But, they've been through it a couple of times now with insanely desired devices. Right. And so, I guess like it would not be surprising to me if they cut out, the vast majority of what we think of as like enthusiast press or games press or whatever, in favor of, who's going to write about that thing for USA Today? That's Nintendo's, that has long been Nintendo's favorite newspaper. I don't know if it still is, but that was always the thing. You would wake up at E3, a copy of USA Today would be at your hotel door because that's what they used to do with papers at hotels. And you would go like, oh, I guess they got the exclusive on announcing everything that's going to be in this at this press conference we're about to go watch, and that we got pre-briefed on 2 days ago, and now here is USA Today reporting it. That's usually how that stuff used to go, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, again, I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 marketing stuff has been very limited, and I think that is I think that makes a lot of sense considering the situation around it. So we'll kind of see how it all goes. I don't know. I'm interested in finally getting my hands. I had an opportunity last week that would have allowed me to go touch a Switch 2 for the first time, but I was unable to do it. So I ended up passing on that opportunity because I was not able to leave town in the middle of the house being underwater and, all of the repairs and everything that we've been doing and stuff. So So yeah, I don't know. I'm interested in kind of getting my hands on that thing and seeing what the hell is up with it. And I guess playing Mario Kart, I don't know, like that seems like the only thing, like there's the only thing that is like truly like new and exciting is really that Mario Kart game. And it feels like everything else is just like, do you want to see Cyberpunk on a Switch too? I mean, they put out like 40 minutes of footage of it running. So like, unless you really want to play Cyberpunk on a handheld device, like I don't know, like that's not that exciting. Like I am very curious to see Street Fighter 6 running on a Switch too. Like I want to know what's up with that and how does it look and so on and so forth. But that is never going to be the primary way that I play Street Fighter 6 in a million zillion years. So, there's a lot of, I was looking over the list. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my hands on 2 physical cartridges. I am going to purchase one that is a full game, which I imagine, I think that's only Cyberpunk, right? Is Cyberpunk the only, other than Mario Kart, Cyberpunk is the only other like real physical game, right? And then one game key game, one fake physical game. Because I need to know if they taste different. I need to know if a real physical game tastes different than a game key. I mean, we have to get the answers to this. So my plans currently are to buy 2 physical things and see what's up with that. And then, yeah, other than that, I don't know. I'm going to go out Thursday night and I'm going to pick up a Switch too not this Thursday, but next Thursday. I'm going to go pick up my pre-order and see how it all goes. I'm kind of excited about that part of it. I don't know. Like it's kind of, I don't know. There's something about like going and being in a line with people for video games that just feels very nostalgic. Like it's just not done. It's just not done anymore. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see all of that. I imagine, well, I mean, we'll see. If I go pick that thing up, I imagine that they will go like, hey, do you want to buy any games with this? Because of course they'll want to sell them, I would assume. And so, I assume I'll be able to take care of my physical game needs then and there, but we'll see. I have no idea. And then I don't know. I ordered a Pro controller that will be shipped here at some point, and I don't know how. We'll see how it all goes. We will see how it all goes. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird launch. It's a very strange launch, and I wonder. So obviously the game key stuff, I think, has been something of a hot button issue amongst people who care about physical games. And sure. Yeah, why not? But it's hard to get. I don't know. It's very hard to get too riled up about that. And I think I wonder, are we going to see, I mean, the game key thing is a way to mitigate this in terms of pricing and whatever else. But like, if there is a full rejection of the game key and more people start making physical full-on games, I imagine those are going to have to be significantly more expensive at a certain point, right? Like Nintendo has inadvertently walked into like the N64 problem all over again, haven't they? Because like all of the speed of these cartridges need to be significantly faster than a Switch 1 game was, because of all the, for the same reason you need to go buy a micro SD XE Express card instead of a regular one, and the Express ones are faster and significantly more expensive. Like, I imagine that the physical game situation is exactly the same problem, where they're like, oh, like these need to run at a certain speed, and so as such they are significantly more expensive to produce than Switch 1 cartridges were. And so they're going to end up in this situation where like games have not gotten smaller. And so anyone who wants to do a physical game, a full-on real physical game, is going to be faced with like relatively unrealistic costs when it comes to, you know, manufacturing games. So I think when lined up against that specific issue, I think the game key thing is a relatively elegant solution. It still lets you buy a gift for someone and put something under a tree. It also still lets you have a thing that you can sell as used and give to a friend or whatever. Like, you know, it's still... And so from that perspective, I think it satisfies all of the real things you would want to do with a physical cartridge, except for the whole like game preservation. Oh, it needs to be real. It needs to be real, which I think that is oftentimes a more theoretical sort of thing. Propaganda says until GameStop stops accepting them. Why would they? I mean, other than GameStop going under, but if it's an item that you can sell and it still gives you the access that a real physical, if it still gives you the exact same access that a real physical game card does, who cares? If all you're trying to do is play some video games and buy and sell some used games, if it works exactly like that, who cares? Right? So I think from that specific angle, it satisfies 95% of what people were looking for out of physical games. And so it's really only the people who were just like, no, it needs to be this. It needs to be this. And I'm thinking about 20 years later. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Most people are not. Most people are not thinking about 20 years later, and they don't really care. And we see that all the time because the vast majority of sales are moving in a digital direction anyway. And so I look at it and go like, it's cool that they're doing this at all. You know, like it would be very easy for them to say like, it's a digital fucking device. Go fuck yourself. And just kind of put up with that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about some video games. Splitgate 2. You heard of this thing? It's got portals. You think with portals. It's crazy. Be right back. Rocket money is useful. Sometimes you just need to be able to wrangle all of your ins and outs. What's going on with the money? Where's the money coming from? When is it coming in? Where's the money going? Is it coming out? Are these bills going up? Are these bills going down? Rocket money can kind of just keep tabs on all of that stuff and let you know when there's, maybe some weird changes. Like, I don't know, maybe you spent a lot of money on a heat pump, and it'll let you know, like, hey, did you mean to spend this money? And you're like, yes, yeah, no, yeah, I had to do that one. But stuff like, hey, your electricity bill is lower this month or higher this month, or, things that will let you know if things are getting a little bit out of whack one way or the other. Of course, like the big thing that people talk about when they talk about Rocket Money is some of the app's premium features. And you can use this to find savings in extra ways. It'll tell you about all your subscriptions, and they will cancel some subscriptions for you, so you can just kind of tap some buttons, give it some information, and they will go off and handle it. Similarly, they will look at your bills, and if they see some stuff and go like, hey, this cell phone bill, it looks a little high. We think we can do better. Then you can say, yeah, by all means, yes, go off and help me figure this out, because you don't have time to get on the phone and threaten to cancel and have them do the little song and dance. Like, well, we'd really like to keep you as a customer. What can we do to, what about this deal? I've been authorized by my manager. You just don't have time for that. So Rocket Money does. So you can send them off and say, yes, go try to negotiate a lower rate on some of these bills, and they will go off and they will see what they can do. And I've saved a few $100s that way, getting some lower bills and having it, cancel a couple of things that I was just like, oh geez, I'm not even, I guess I don't even use this. And all of that stuff has been really handy, Ultimately, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills. so that you can grow your savings, you know? And all of those things add up to, you know, just being a really useful kind of look at your overall finances and where stuff is at. And that's been handy. Rocket Money has over 5 million users that have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Download the Rocket Money app and enter the show name. They got a little survey. You know, they'll be like, well, how did you hear about Rocket Money? They want to know. Tell them. It was me, man. It was me. And enter the show name of the survey so that they know that, you know, where you're coming from. Don't wait. Download the Rocket Money app today and let them know you heard about it from this show. Video games, they still make them. You can still play them. I've been playing Splitgate 2, which has had a weird, it's in open beta. And it's, I would say it's a bit of a bumpy open beta launch insofar as they've got login queues and they've got some cosmetic packs for sale on Steam that are not showing up. If you buy them, they are for whatever reason not showing up in game. So, you know, they have a thing when you launch it, the little news feed that all these games have now. It says like, your purchases are safe. We're working on it. So that seems like a good problem to have. I mean, for a game, man, the Splitgate saga, I feel like could have gone off the rails a million different times, and it seems like that they are threading the needle so far. I guess we'll see, you know, over these next handful of months or whatever until the game is out of beta or whatever. But if you don't remember, Splitgate 1 came out at a time when people were very interested in playing a Halo game. And Splitgate is, you know, Splitgate 2 less so, but Splitgate 1 had a very Halo-like feel to its weapons and a little bit to its movement and whatever else. And the addition was a portal gun, much like the hit video game Portal has. And so you could create, you could shoot a portal here, shoot a portal right next to you. You could shoot your guns through the portal at other enemies. You could walk through the portals to be behind your enemies. You could think with portals. You could act with portals, so on and so forth. It's a neat game. And it became very popular to the point where like they came out and said, hey, man, we are blown away that you guys like Splitgate as much as you like Splitgate. This is rad. Also, we're not going to update Splitgate anymore because we are going to immediately start work on Splitgate 2 because we made a lot of decisions back when this was an incredibly small company and we didn't think that this game was going to be as big as it was. And so now we cannot do that to this game. The things we want to do, the things you want us to do are not possible with the decisions we blah, blah, blah. And so Splitgate 2 was then born. They've run some closed tests and stuff a little bit previously. Now it is in open beta on Steam. I don't know. I did not see something saying, hey, this is when it shuts down. So I imagine that this is just like, yo, the game is out. But I don't know. I don't know what the full plan is there. Either way, it is free on Steam. And you can play it. It's got a map creator, which is that's cool. I have not looked at that at all currently. So you know, it's got new maps and it's got all sorts of stuff. So they're selling stuff, which is not super awesome for a game that's in beta. But that's why I say, hey, this game is just out. So, you know, we can label it a beta. We can be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, the open beta will go straight into launch. They will not reset progress after the beta. So the game is effectively out. All they're signaling to you is like, there's more stuff we want to add. So the game's just out. So I think that's maybe less weird when you think about them selling things. It's just out. It's not like the game's going to go away and your stuff's going to, you know, be unavailable for some chunk of time or whatever. So I don't, you know, I am somewhat ambivalent about that, considering. But they're selling there's an Ultimate Founders Pack for like $60, which has some currency and some skins and some charms. And like I said, none of that is working right now. So, or for me, it did not. I don't know about you, but nothing that I purchased on Steam showed up in game. So I imagine that is kind of the common experience and why they have a message there. Anyway, Splitgate 2, I think is, I think it's really cool. I don't know, man. It feels faster and a little bit more nimble than, the Halo comparisons that I think the game had originally. I think it still has that weight to the weapons and that general feel, but it is much more like run and slide on top of that. And it feels very nice. Just in the hand. All of the movement, I think, feels really good. The sliding and whatever. I think the stuff they've done with the controls, the shooting feels good. They don't give you, you think about Portal and you go, oh, do I have 2 buttons, one for each portal? No, they've reduced it to 1 button. And so you just kind of like, you tap right bumper and go pop, pop. The one on this wall, one over here, and then you can hit a button to make all your portals disappear. Or there are some mechanics around you shooting your portal over an enemy portal to make it go away. There's some mechanics around that as well. And they've built, I would say some modes that continue to seem Halo-esque. Like you running around with a ball. It's no skull, but but you clubbing people with an item that you're holding on to for points or whatever. It's got, the kind of default mode the default matchmaking hopper, I suppose, goes through a variety of modes, including objective-based modes. So I was playing one where it was called Firecracker, but it was like you were planting a bomb. It was bomb site A, bomb site B, one team attacking, one team defending. And when it goes off, there are fireworks. That's the difference. And so they've esportsed it up a little bit insofar as it's got that kind of bright, colorful, look to it, and everything seems very sportsy, very future sportsy in its presentation. And I think that works fine for it. It's, it is what it is. It's not, but I mean that to say you are not like shooting the limbs off of enemies or whatever. It is not Soldier of Fortune over here. It is not Call of Duty levels of dismemberment and such. It is way more sci-fi and clean than that stuff is. But I think like that's, in terms of like games that are off to a good start, like I think, what do you want out of a modern shooter? You want the movement to feel good. There are a lot of games that get this, a lot of games that are kind of under that tier of like, here are the top shooters in the world, and if you're not one of these, you're just effed anyway. Like, you want like a game that's going to break through is going to need to have certain things. And I think Splitgate 2 has that stuff. Like it's got a very good feel to it in terms of how you are moving, how you are shooting. It's got some class-based stuff and some reasons to rank up and level up because you're unlocking loadout items and perks and such. So, there's kind of reasons to stick with certain items. It is somewhat class-based. You are like picking from 3 different classes that will have different unique abilities. And so, the one that I went with pops a bubble that when you or your teammates are in the bubble, you act faster, and when enemies are in the bubble, they act slower. So it's something you can kind of use to very quickly gain the upper hand in a, kind of close combat situation, or popping around an objective to give the enemy team a bad time for a little while, like those sorts of options. I think it's got a really nice look to it. I think it's got a really nice feel to it. I remember the initial reveal of Splitgate 2. The people that I know that were big Splitgate fans seemed a little hesitant. Naturally so, I think, the idea of like, hey, we're going to do it all over again. And we struck gold the last time, and oh God, are we going to be able to do it again? I think that the people were a little hesitant about the whole situation. But like, I think when the first round of Splitgate 2 closed beta or playtest stuff went down, people seemed a little lukewarm on it. And I thought like, oh man, they're gonna throw it all away. They're gonna mess up Splitgate 1 with Splitgate 2, and then Splitgate 2 is not gonna be what it needs to be. And oh wow, this like flash in the pan thing is happening before our eyes. But actually, I think that what they're making is really sound. And you know, with any luck, it'll catch on and work for them. I think that, again, login queues can always be faked, so I'm not, you know, I'm always a little wary. I'm not gonna go like, it's got login queues, so you know it's a hit. Like don't fall for it. But I do think that like it seems like that it is getting played. Matchmaking times are short. Like it seems like it is at least reasonably popular right now. I haven't gone and looked at Steam charts or anything like that to kind of see how it's doing, but it does feel like that the general sentiment around it has improved quite a bit since those initial kind of early unveiling stuff that they've done. So I'd say give it a look. Like if you're looking for a shooter, it's free. I think it feels really nice. And we'll kind of see where it goes from here, you know. And yes, I believe it. Yeah, I believe it is on consoles. Yes, I have been playing it on a personal computer, but I do believe it is out across the board. Yeah, it is. Yes, it is indeed on console, and they're doing Twitch drops according to this. I've also been playing a game called Cauldron. Bryn recommended this one and said that it looked like something that was right up my alley, and it kind of, well, yeah, I guess it kind of is. Cauldron is on. How much is Cauldron? Let me look at this. Cauldron's looks to be about $15 when it's off its launch sale. It's $13.50 right now. Cauldron is a turn-based combat game with a bunch of mini games mixed in. They are decidedly mini games and not micro games. At first, I thought that this was going to be a turn-based RPG with WarioWare mixed in, and I got super excited. But it turns out it's not quite. But basically, there are like, I believe, 5 different resources that you get in the game. And you can get them passively over time just by, you know, a chest in your camp fills up with these resources slowly. But you can also go get them by playing these mini games. And the mini games are very simple. One of them is just ridiculous fishing with a really big upgrade tree. And so you are, you know, you're collecting all of these fish and getting down as low as you can to the more valuable fish, and dodging the bad fish on your way up and whatever. And then fish is a resource. There is another one that is like Kaboom, basically. Apples are falling out of the sky. You've got a little bucket and you go back and forth and collect the apples. But as you purchase more and more things on the skill tree, you eventually get to a point where you've got a ghost buddy that is behind you that has a bucket that is as wide as the entire screen. And from that point, it kind of just becomes a shooter, because there are enemy slimes appearing and you're shooting fireballs, and you know, so it's like these games will change as you go. There are some that are more puzzle oriented, where you're getting like limited numbers of moves to dig down and move around an area to collect talent points or collect, you know, like a variety of resources that you're getting that way. Which, like, the default mode for that almost has like a Steam World Dig vibe to it, but much simplified from that. And then you're going around this world, and the overworld that you are in when you're not playing these games is covered in all of these dark shadows. And so when you butt up against one of the points of darkness, that is a battle. And so the battles will have different levels. You have a party. You start alone, but as you uncover more territory, you will find additional party members, and they will all have their own special moves, and you know, you can eventually equip items to them and spend talent points to level them up in whatever specific ways you want to, you know, go and do these battles against various slimes and whatever else. And so as you're uncovering more of the map, you are finding more things to find, basically. You're like, oh, here's another entire mini game that we didn't find earlier that is like an auto shooting survival game with its own upgrade tree and all this other stuff. And here's another one where we're getting ice crystals, and it's a very weird game. And you're also uncovering kind of additional kind of harder puzzles that will do things like level up your items or help you uncover more items to equip to your party and whatever. And so it is not a game that where you are battling to get experience points. It's a game where you're doing all of this other stuff to make your party more powerful so that you can uncover more of the map, so that you can find more things to become more powerful, so that you can uncover more of the map and uncover more of the story and kind of go from there. It's a very interesting kind of back and forth, like the loop of it of like doing this to do more of this. Like all of that stuff feels really good. The thing I'll also say is that it has a pretty robust auto battle system. And after a few hours of doing the combat myself, I was like, you know what? Just not really. I don't know. This turn-based combat, like relatively basic stuff. You know, you're just picking, do you want to attack or defend, or use one of your skills if you have enough energy points to use a skill. But you eventually get to a point where you have like 8 party members, and it's just like, you know, it got to be a lot. And I was like, this is not really why I'm here. The turn-based RPG combat is not actually why I'm playing this. And so I turned on auto battle, and I am losing some battles that I bet I could win if I was just being more intelligent about it, but that's okay. I'll just go and become more overpowered. You can also bribe your way through those battles. You can earn enough of the money, the various, you earn enough fish, get enough resources in your hand to just bribe your way through the battles, which is kind of cool. So Cauldron has all of that going for it, and all of that is just its main mode. As you play, you start, even before you have finished the game once, it will start unlocking additional modes. And then you realize, each save file has room for 6 different save files in it. And that's because you can go start a game that is like, this one has harder enemies, but you can equip 2 items instead of 1. And so that's how you offset it. Or there's one mode that is just straight up idle game where you can only auto battle. And I don't believe you can even play the mini games anymore. I think but you get resources at a different rate. And so it's these different kind of remixes on the concept that you can kind of go back through and play differently. And I think that's kind of neat. So there's a pacifist mode where you cannot fight, you can only bribe. And so you have to collect the resources and you have to get a ton of resources to make your way around the map. But to compensate for that, they make it so the resources generate more quickly. And I thought about it. I was looking at that going like, maybe I should just start over in that mode, because that seems like something that that's kind of more what I would rather do, as I'm just not, like I'm not getting that much out of the turn-based combat. Again, it's fine. It's not bad. But it's just not why I'm there. It's a neat game. It's Steam Deck compatible, so you can kind of play, if you're like me, you can play it in multiple locations, like bed, or perhaps the toilet. I set up. I speaking of Steam Deck, I decided to set up my Steam Deck dock all over again and plug it all in, and I was like, maybe this would be the way for me to emulate games on the big television from time to time. And I set all that up, and I wasn't super happy with how it all looked, and I was like, it's cool that this does this, but I don't really want to do this. Like the Steam Deck is not, like, I don't want to hook the Steam Deck up to a 4K TV and then have to try to run games in 4K. I also don't necessarily want to run them at 1200 by like 800p or whatever on a big television, because it looks really good on the Steam Deck screen, but not so hot on a real TV. And so I'm like, maybe I mean, this is a neat option to have, but I don't know that I necessarily want to do it all that much. But after hooking up, like I've been through the ringer of like, I'm hooking up a Raspberry Pi and like, oh, maybe I'll finally install Laka on this again and get all that up and running, and Batocera or something, Retro Bat, all of these different flavors of fucking dog shit emulator front ends. Every single one of them fucking sucks. It's like, hey, do you want to use Emulation Station? No, I fucking don't. It's fucking terrible. It's a miserable experience. It's bad software, man. Holy shit. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. That's the problem that all of those things have. It's just like every single one of them is built around the idea of you using the worst piece of front end software in the world. And except for Laka, which is at least the RetroArch front end, which sucks in a different way. It sucks in a way that I'm at least used to. But also like the build of it's super old, whatever. Anyway, I set all that stuff up and was like, I could play Cauldron on the TV. And then I did that for a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm literally sitting I'm literally sitting in the exact same chair. I could just turn this way and just play it on the PC instead. I don't need it. I just don't need it. If I had a TV in a different room, it would make a ton of sense. But if I put that in the different room, the kids would just get their damn hands on it and break it. So forget it. Have I tried Launchbox? Buddy, I registered Launchbox. It's bad. It's fucking bad. It's the only thing I like about Launchbox is sometimes I like to look at a lot of box art. And so the only reason I have Launchbox installed is because sometimes I like to scroll through a lot of box art and go, yeah. And it's good for that. But like, just keep your fucking games in sensible directories and sort them properly to begin with. You don't, unless you're building something that is specifically has to be navigated with a controller because you're hooking it up to a TV. Just fucking don't. You don't need it, man. And so I don't know. That's always the problem, right? Is because you're like, oh, well, I'm trying to build an arcade cabinet, which I think is a dumb thing anyway. But whatever. But like, I think unless you're very specifically building something that is not going to have a keyboard and not going to be a real computer, you don't need that shit. And Launchbox is like, if you like people like that stuff, people swear by it. And I think that people will have very specific reasons why they like or don't like all of those emulator front ends. I think they're all fucking terrible. Like when you go through the process of installing all this stuff on a Steam Deck, if you use EmuDeck, which is a script that automatically installs and configures a lot of stuff, which is nice. It's handy. But even there, like, we put all these tools in here. Here's the Steam ROM manager so you can add all of your games to the Steam front end. And I'm like, I know. Do you know how many games I'm copying to this SD card? I don't want those in my fucking Steam library. Are you out of your fucking mind? What am I going to add 50,000 non-Steam games? Are you high? No, thank you. So yeah, it's just like a lot of the flows, a lot of the workflow that people put in place for all of this stuff. Just like all these really weird use cases that I'm like, no, I'm not touching this shit. Absolutely not. I have other ways of loading these things that are not this. But again, your mileage may vary. Let's take a quick break. We'll talk about Pleasantville after this. Okay? Pleasantville. Everyone's favorite video game. Pleasantville. Hey, are you unhappy with your hair? Are you looking in the mirror and going like, there's not enough here and I want there to be more here? Well, hey, try Hims Hair Loss Solutions. You can avoid jumping through a bunch of frustrating hoops and get access to treatment without even leaving your home. That's right. Hims provides you with convenient access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. And Hims makes treating hair loss simple, with doctor-trusted options and clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil that can regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. You can choose from personalized, chewable, oral, spray, or even serum treatments to find what works best for you. The process is simple, and it's done 100% online, so there's no doctor visits. You don't have to book a bunch of stuff. Just answer a few questions,
A medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you, and if prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, and they can help you get your confidence back too with visibly thicker and fuller hair. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Jeff. That's HIMS.com/Jeff for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/Jeff. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
Microsoft has been talking quite a bit about this idea of game preservation, and it makes sense because Microsoft has acquired a lot of intellectual property over the years here. Obviously the purchase of Activision. This is something we talked about, I think, when the purchase of Activision first got announced. It was like, oh man, Microsoft is going to own like Doom, and like Microsoft now owns Pitfall and Kaboom and all of this, very classic, classic Zork, like they own a ton of very meaningful video games, and the rights to those games. And so, they've dabbled in the past. Before they owned all this stuff, they put out something called Game Room, which was sort of a front end for emulators, and they were selling individual games on it. You could buy them in packs. But it was a variety of arcade games. They had Konami on board for some of it. A lot of that Activision stuff was there. And it was, it was like a decent... it was decent for what it was, which what it was too expensive on a per game basis to survive. It was too it was too expensive and also not expensive enough for the people who owned the rights to all of those games to want to stick with it. And so it was this situation where, like, these companies are like, well, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to do something with our old games, but not for $3 a sale. Like, no. And in the years since, we've seen stuff like Hamster come along with the Arcade Classics line of games, where they're selling individual arcade games, I believe, for $7 or $8 a pop. There were some Neo Geo games that they released that I want to say were even more expensive. And that's, I think that some of those are a little too pricey for what they are. So somewhere between $3 and $7 is seems like the right line for the right game. But really, this stuff kind of probably needs to be more like a subscription service or whatever, right? It needs to, and so the Nintendo approach has merit, right? Because there are a lot of games on that Nintendo Switch online service that you would never in a million years pay individual money for. But if it's there, you might go like, oh, well, I mean, yeah, sure. Let's look at this. Sure. Why not? And so Game Room didn't work out for Microsoft. It was something where when they finally stopped supporting it, there were games, because they released the games in packs, and so it was a pack of, was it 15? I don't remember the number, but it was a pack of games would come out, and you could buy them for Xbox, you could buy them for PC, and you could buy them for Windows Phone, because this was a long time ago. And there was you got a discount if you bought it for both. And it just didn't work out. And so the game Sunset Riders is kind of weirdly a game anytime I think about Sunset Riders, I think about this. You could look at the games that were in the packs. They would show up on little TV screens around your little fake arcade, and you could go look at what games are in this pack. And so literally they would show you emulated Sunset Riders running on your Xbox before it was for sale. And normally, eventually, those games would go on sale and you could buy them and whatever. Sunset Riders never released. never downloaded to people's consoles as part of pack 7 or 8 or whatever the final pack for Game Room was. But for whatever reason, at the last minute, it just never went on sale. Presumably, the story I was always told with Game Room was exactly what I said, is that, the money just wasn't enough for a lot of people. And so, perhaps Microsoft pulled out, but I think that Konami maybe was also like, yeah, we're done with this. And so even though Sunset Riders was initially supposed to be part of it, it was never sold. I remember hearing from someone who had worked on Game Room, and they were like, dude, we had Neo Geo games up and running in that thing. We had so many other games running in emulators, but the business was the thing holding it back. Because again, that price point of like $3 a game or whatever was too low for a lot of companies that, we're used to selling these games in their own collections for $40 a pop, that if you broke it down probably wasn't much more than $3 a game. But I think we can all agree that some Neo Geo games are probably worth more than $3, and some are worth significantly less. Especially even, not just Neo Geo games, but 2600 games. There's a lot of stuff that you're just like, yeah, this is really stupid. So Game Room didn't work out. Now they have put out something that is called, I need to look it up because it doesn't show up right. It's called Retro Classics, right? Retro Classics. And this is a part of Game Pass. You can download it and use it if you are a Game Pass member. I don't know if they're actually selling it individually. I have to imagine they are not, based on the nature of it that we'll get into in a moment. The other thing is that if you install it on PC, and maybe they've fixed this, but they just can't retroactively fix it. I installed it the day that they announced it. It installed on my PC as something called Pleasantville. And so the start menu shortcut is just named Pleasantville. Presumably that was the code name for this project. The idea that that they shipped this without fixing that is a real telling, perhaps, insofar it's in the amount of care perhaps given to this overall release. Retro Classics is a new skin and a filter for something called AntStream Arcade. AntStream Arcade is a service that has existed for a while. It is an emulation-based, cloud-based streaming service, meaning you can play Fatal Fury in the cloud. They have a variety they have some Neo Geo games. They've got some Amiga games. They have an interesting swath of games on the AntStream service. A lot of 2600 stuff, some arcade games, console, PC games adapted for controller in some cases. It's a very strange collection of games. And they have built a challenge system around it where you can challenge other players to score-based stuff, or specific weird modes that they've kind of created in there. And all of that stuff is really neat. The catch, though, is that it all is streaming-based. It is all cloud-based. And so none of it runs locally. And so you are playing all of these... And you are playing all of these games in the cloud with the latency of the cloud. And so Retro Classics, the thing that Microsoft announced and released last week, is that exact technology. They are not hiding it. They are like, we have partnered with AntStream to bring you this. And it is something that is the games that Microsoft owns, meaning it is all Activision products. So it's a lot of Venetian Blinds is in here, the classic Venetian Blinds, but also MechWarrior 2. However, it's the PlayStation 1 version of MechWarrior 2, which at least maps to the controller you're likely to be holding, but it's not the version that you want to play. And so it is you can play Hero, you can play Atlantis, because Activision at some point purchased the iMagic portfolio. And so games like Atlantis and Demon Attack are now part of that portfolio. And you can use this to play your River Raids and your River Raid 2s and it's over 50 games. And it's a decent variety, it's for something that's on Game Pass. You go like, well, hey, yeah, this is cool. Like, it's a way for me to play these games. However, you're playing it in the cloud, and so it doesn't look quite right. This thing has music. Oh, okay, good. No, you are hearing that. It's like, I thought I had rerouted audio in a way that was going to make that not work. I just wanted to look at some of the games here. Like, The Adventures of Willie Beamish is on here. You can play Space Quest 2. The human version of Freeway, which was normally a chicken, Bloody Human Freeway, they refer to it as. You can play that. Yeah, what do they have for the SNES here? Yeah, MechWarrior for the SNES. Willie Beamish, Space Quest, and Police Quest are all the Amiga versions. The PlayStation, it's funny because when you type in PlayStation or click there's a button here that literally says PSX, and then it says platform 32-bit console. Like, they didn't want to, like, they forgot to not use the term PSX anywhere in this or something. But, like, you can play Zork. And you can play Zork in the cloud because none of it runs locally. So you can stream a text window to your desktop. And some people, I've seen screenshots of this where people were like trying to play Zork, and the video feed got all fucked up, and you couldn't even read the text. It's just like completely shot, just ridiculous. And so this is not what you're looking for. I think if you care about these games, you want to play these games with low latency, you want to play these games the way that they were originally, these are not the trade-offs you want to make, I guess, is what I would say. Is you don't want to play Pitfall with just a little bit of extra added latency. Speaking as someone who just the other day played Pitfall with cloud latency on it, I was like, this is not, I don't want to do this. I was like, this is okay. It is if you are like losing your mind and you're like, oh my God, I have to play Pitfall right now. And if I don't play Pitfall right now, something bad is going to happen. Then yeah, dude, like it's a good emergency backup for playing Pitfall. And it's on Game Pass, and so you're not paying any additional fee for it or whatever. But when you look at Game Pass and you look at them, the power of all of these devices that can run this, the idea that these games can only run via a cloud-based video stream is ridiculous. And when you think about it, like, I have to imagine from a cost perspective that it would probably be cheaper over the long run to just fucking license or use whatever Atari 2600 emulation technology you already have, because you used it for Game Room and you used it on PC as well at that time, to just make it run locally. Just make this stuff run locally. Like, why is this? Why would you do this? Unless you were like just fiending for use cases for the cloud. And it's not even like the default Microsoft xCloud stuff. It is the AntStream stuff, and this feels like if you wanted to do this quickly, if you just wanted to stand up a streaming service and go like, yeah, cool, we own these games anyway, just put this up, we can put it up, we can just do it. Then, hey, I guess that this probably This probably was a fast and relatively inexpensive project once you take away whatever the cost structure is for the cloud streaming and whatever else. This probably was a very quick thing for them to do because Antstream was already doing it. They just had to make a new skin for their player that looked a little more Xboxy and throw it out there. It bums me out. At the end of the day, it bums me out. And people are sending it to me over and over again, and they're saying, Game Room is back! Nothing stop. And I'm like, no, motherfucker, this is not that. This is a travesty compared to that. This is sad. When you look at Game Room as what Game Room was. This is a sad substitute for what that was. And so I'm really I'm sad. I guess I would say I'm sad that this is not something that they did properly, that this is not something that they did natively. Because the other thing you can do, if you really want to stack this up and make it as expensive for someone else to run as possible, you can run Retro Classics on xCloud. Meaning if you're using your television with an Xbox controller hooked up to it, or you're using the Steam Deck installed green light, or whatever. And you know what that means, right? That means you're running this cloud-based emulation thing in the cloud. And so it is streaming every bit of it to you over video. And then inside of that video is another stream. Ah! What are we doing? All of this to play fucking Kaboom? Are you fucking shitting me? This is what we're like. I'm surprised. Like, no wonder, man. This company, like, it's give it 180 days. They're going to be like, we have figured out a way to generate Kaboom fully in AI. And now you can play Kaboom without having to get Kaboom, because now you can play with the power of AI. You can just play Kaboom. There are so many ways to run Kaboom locally. I mean, the controls are a hassle because it's a paddle-based game, right? I mean, let's not. There's AI ain't gonna make Kaboom run right without paddle controllers. That's for damn sure. No, it's just crazy. The whole thing is just fucking crazy, and I just look at it and just shake my head and go, like, I cannot believe that this is that someone thought that this would be like a good, cool solution to do this. And it's a bummer because, like, you look at it and go like, oh yeah, I should be able to play all of these games that Microsoft now owns inside of some sort of Xbox. There's no reason why this hasn't been done. Like, yeah, I should be able to play Beam Rider on an Xbox at this point. That should be on Game Pass. Pitfall 2, multiple versions of Pitfall 2 should probably be on Game Pass by now. But this is the way that they have decided to solve it. And it's real silly. So if you want to play Thwacker, or again, Venetian Blinds is on here. Like, if you want maximum fucking stupidity, if you want to stack this shit as high as you can, you fire up the xCloud, you launch Retro Classics, you launch Venetian Blinds, you play, quote unquote, Venetian Blinds through 2 layers of streaming. How much do you think that costs to run over time? To keep these servers, sending video feed inside of a video feed. How much do you think that costs? If I were to run Venetian blinds for 24 hours a day, could you bankrupt Microsoft? How many of us would it take running Venetian blinds? I mean, they would make all this money on Game Pass subscriptions or whatever, and maybe that works out or whatever, but you would think at some point what can I say? I love it. This is the dumbest thing I've fucking seen in ages. I can't believe it. Like, I cannot believe that this is an actual real thing, that we've reached a weird point with all the cloud streaming and all the, the attempts at having high-tech weird shit led to a moment where now you can play Laser Blast in the cloud. You can play Freddy Farkas Frontier Pharmacist in the cloud. Some of these games are great. I'm a Chopper Command fan. I'm a fan of Chopper Command. But not like this, man. Whatever. Again, it is not the worst thing in the world. But at the same time, and they're saying they will have over 100 games, I think, by the end of the year or something. So they were looking to add more games to it over time. It's just such a bizarre path for this stuff to take that I'll just look at it and go like, this is not like, for a bit there, I was like, man, it really seems like Microsoft could be in a position to really like preserve some of these classic games and present them to people all over again. And and I remember when the deal closed, or I guess technically the deal just closed because the FTC just dropped their kind of final court stuff around it. But when they first announced the deal, I was like, man, they should immediately be putting Pitfall on Game Pass. Like, they should immediately be putting some of these games out there. That's that would be a relatively easy thing for them to do, that they could just point to and go like, look at this, isn't this cool? But this is not cool. The thing they have done is not actually cool. And that's the bummer about it, is instead it is like, some weird technology rabbit hole that you just like, how far down it do you want to go to play these games? It shouldn't be this way. And I hope they eventually do the right thing with these games and find ways to run them natively on devices that can support them. Which, to be honest, is most of them. Maybe the television manufacturers wouldn't want to. If we're saying everything is an Xbox, then LG might not want you to be able to play Pitfall natively on a television or something. But at least on Xbox and PC, it just seems like something that these should run natively. Like, what are we doing? This should have like gorgeous recreations of the original manuals and box art, and like there are things you could do with this that you could go like, isn't this cool? Like, look at us, we're treating this stuff well. Instead, it feels like everything they've done and said about old games lately has been either this or them getting out there and saying like, we think we could use AI to recreate these games, and you could just have these games live forever and stop having to port them places. And you're like, that is not how this is going to work. There's a million reasons why that's not going to be the right way to do this. Especially when all of this territory is very well kind of forked out, and it is not, I'm not going to say it is trivial to port an Atari 2600 emulator to a variety of platforms over the next 40 years, but at the same time, I bet that is still less expensive than the cost of generating fucking Pitfall in AI. So yeah, Retro Classics is out now. You can get it. You should take a look at. It's a damn shame, because I do think that the things that they've done with challenges and leaderboards and some of this is stuff that Game Room did as well. Like some of this stuff is cool, and it would be a cool way to be able to engage with these games and add challenge to them where there maybe wasn't before. And Like that stuff's not bad. And that was kind of like my take on Antstream also was like, oh, hey, it's kind of neat that it's kind of neat that they built all this challenge stuff, because you can kind of send this around and earn XP for beating other players or or whatever in these kind of single player score based challenges. And the cloud stuff was sort of the letdown there, but I don't know. Like, there are enough open source emulators that are available to be licensed commercially. Under a handful of different terms and stuff. There are enough emulator programmers out there that could knock out the vast majority of the work on this pretty fast. Like, if you just wanted, well, let's see, what systems are they emulating here? They've got a variety of games that are listed as DOS. Quest for Glory, for example, Freddy Farkas, Caesar 2. They have one SNES game, 3 Amiga games, 1 PlayStation game, and the rest are 2600 games. So, it's, if you stuck with 2600 out of the gate and built up to the other stuff later, putting something like Stella on or if Stella has the right licensing or whatever. But like, again, emulating 2600 stuff, especially these 2600 games, not hard. As someone who does not code, I'll say, like, as someone who was not going to do that port work myself, my understanding, not super hard. So I don't know. Frustrating. A frustrating way for Microsoft to address this legacy, I would say. And with that, let's get into the news. Microsoft has decided to make individual developer accounts free next month, according to Xbox Era, who has picked this up from the Windows developer blog. What this means, if you want to install unsigned applications to the Windows Store or to an Xbox, that was something that they were charging $20 for. You could buy an account, and then you could work on publishing your own stuff to the Xbox Store. Now people do this, and people make their own apps, and they ship their own apps, and they do it all on the up and up. You may have heard of this particular plan as something that people did to install RetroArch onto an Xbox, because once you can basically flip your Xbox over into dev mode, which is a reboot. It's not all alongside your games or whatever. Once you flip your thing over to dev mode, you can install pretty much any unsigned applications you want. There are tools to do all of that. And so even if RetroArch is not something that is officially on the store or whatever, or you are not officially the developer of it, it is not difficult for you to get a copy of it and install it to your Xbox. If you wanted to make your Xbox run Atari 2600 games natively, I'm just, if that was something you wanted to do, that is something that, used to cost you $20 and now will not. A variety of platforms could be emulated in that way. You could probably do DOS-based stuff. I'm sure you could do Super Nintendo games. I bet you could even do PlayStation games. So that's something you could do. If you want to play, I don't know, like what PlayStation game would you want to play on an Xbox? Like MechWarrior 2 or something. Like just picking something out of the air if you wanted to run something like that. Then maybe you could do something along those lines. But yes, this was something that initially required you to use a credit card and what have you to get access to this dev mode. And then people that were abusing it in weird ways because They were charging $20 for it. Everyone was trying to like scoot bootleg versions of emulators onto the Xbox store in ways that like it would technically be unlisted, but you could still pass the link around and people could install it. And, you know, there were weird ways to do it without a dev account. And that shit was always just funky. And would get shut down eventually. So with this, if you want to get into dev mode on your own and do your own dirt, it sounds like you can now do your own dirt, which sounds kind of neat. I might try that. I might try that at some point. That might be neat. But yeah, so that's something that will no longer cost you that $20. Speaking of spending less money, Sony, the PlayStation people, have announced plans for their Days of Play promotion. This is something they usually kind of do around this time of the year, summertime. And it is kind of like, hey, here's some games that are going on sale and some various deals, and you know, they kind of roll in that month's PlayStation Plus games to it to make it seem like, oh, and these games are on PlayStation. Like, yeah, you do games every month on PlayStation Plus. Okay. And so they announced the June games for PlayStation Plus, or what is it? It's NBA 2K25, Alone in the Dark, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, and Destiny 2 The Final Shape. More games are coming to the game catalog as well, including Destiny 2 Legacy Collection, which makes me think that now, I guess if you have a PlayStation Plus account, maybe it needs to be an extra or premium level account for all of this. But if I'm reading this right, that means you could theoretically play Destiny 2, all of Destiny 2, without buying any of it. Skull and Bones is also coming to the PlayStation catalog. Anyway, the real part of this is that some of the stuff is going on sale, including hardware, and that includes the PlayStation 5 Pro, which will be getting a $50 price cut as a part of this promotion. So if you were waiting for some sort of sale to pick up a PS5 Pro, it's hard to imagine that the sale will get any better anytime soon. I wonder, I imagine this is a limited time. So this is, what is this? This is May 28th to June 11th that they are doing this sale. So that starts tomorrow. Do you think the PlayStation 5 Pro will be cheaper than $50 off come Christmas time? Or will they, you know, will that be $100 off at that point, or will it just be another $50? I'm guessing it'll just be the same $50 price cut, but we'll see. Who knows? By Christmas, maybe they will have raised the price of it another $100. So yeah, $50 off a PS5 Pro. Also $50 off the PlayStation VR 2. Who's in? Who's buying a PSVR 2 now? Who's like, yes, the landscape for PSVR 2 software has never been brighter. There's never been a better time to get a PSVR 2. Like, yes, finally. I mean, I guess you could hook it up to a PC, but then, you know, the limitations. Anyway. $30 off the Pulse Explorer wireless earbuds, $30 off a DualSense Edge, $20 off of the Access controller, $20 off of regular DualSense controllers, and some games will go on sale as well. PlayStation Plus memberships will be 33% off. So you can select memberships will be up to 33% off, which tells me that I bet that the low level PlayStation Plus will probably not be that discounted. This is stuff they are selling directly from them on PlayStation Direct, but also retailers will take take part in the sale as well. This also comes with a new console bundle, You can get a PlayStation 5 along with Microsoft's hottest video game, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Looks like they have a variety of SKUs for that one, starting at $399. So you could get some form of a PlayStation 5. I assume that is going to be the digital console if you are getting it for $399. For that, along with a copy of Black Ops. So, and then some movies and some other stuff. I don't know. They say, on PlayStation Direct, they will also PS5 console covers, external storage drives, and other stuff will be getting exclusive offers.
World premiere.
For all those hot hits. So yeah, that starts tomorrow, runs through June 11th. Yeah, man, the PlayStation 5 Pro. That thing. You can get it for $50 off. $399 for a console, obviously, you have to deal with it being digital only and never using discs or whatever, but like, I hate to say it, but I look at that and go like, that's actually not a bad price. it's no good that we look at a $400 price tag and go, you know what? Nice. So, but that's the world in which we live. We also live in a world where Hellblade 2 is coming to the PS5. That is going to be happening this summer. It will have PlayStation 5 Pro enhancements, according to your friend and mine, videogameschronicle.com. They will also be patching new features into other versions of the game, but they did not say what those features were. They're adding haptic feedback with the PlayStation controller, which could be cool for what that game is. That game is a feedback tour de force. That is a game where they're like, you should wear headphones because it's so trippy, bro. And so better controller stuff, I think, would be neat, potentially, there. This game is a trip, dog. Like, you should launch that and just be like, dog, this game is gonna fuck you up, man. It's a neat game. Nintendo has updated its compatibility lists for the Switch 2. Have you seen all the pictures? Looks like Targets are now getting their Switch 2s. They're just like locked up on the floor, like there's pictures of Switch 2s in cages. So truly, the Switch 2 is upon us. It is just about ready to happen here. Anyway, they have updated today. Nintendo updated its compatibility listings for Switch 1 games on Switch 2. This is, if you look at it percentage-wise, the overwhelming majority of Switch 1 games will run on the Switch 2 just fine. But there is like relatively lengthy lists of games that have a variety of issues. They do have a list of software that cannot be used on Switch 2, but it's like, it's all apps. It's the Nico Nico app, it's Abema, it's Hulu, Crunchyroll, and Inky Pen, as well as the Nintendo Labo Toy-Con 04 VR kit, which will not work with the Switch 2 because, according to the Nintendo, the Switch 2 console cannot be inserted into the Toy-Con VR goggles accessory, so this game cannot be played. To which I would say they should be sending new cardboard to anyone who requests it. They should be like, oh, you bought a Switch 2 and you want to do the VR thing? We've got some cardboard for you. Or here's some, get some duct tape, dog. I wonder if they block it from running. Just to make sure that no one tries to put it in there and then it falls on the ground and they go, Nintendo, you ripped me off. We're suing you for you sold bad cardboard. Why you sell bad cardboard? And then they've got 3 separate lists of issues. We've talked about this before, I guess 4 separate lists. There's also the list of games that require the original Joy-Cons to run. because of things like the IR camera on the original Joy-Cons. So things like 1-2 Switch. There are games you cannot play on the Switch 2 Joy-Cons because it does not have the IR camera. I'm more excited that they have decided to not put an IR camera on the Switch 2. I'm like, yes, let's get away from all of this stupid garbage. Ring Fit doesn't work because the Switch 2 Joy-Cons don't fit in the thing. But if you have original Joy-Cons, you can pair them to the Switch 2 and still use it. This list has not changed as far as I know. It's Ring Fit Adventure, 1-2 Switch, everybody 1-2 Switch, Game Builder Garage because of IR motion camera stuff, Nintendo Switch Sports because the controllers don't fit into the leg strap, so you can't play soccer with a leg strap. Unless you use a regular Joy-Con. WarioWare Move It because of the IR camera, and all of the Labo stuff. While Nintendo Switch Joy-Con can be used with the included Toy-Con accessories, the Nintendo Switch 2 console cannot be placed in the fishing rod, motorbike, piano, or house Toy-Con accessories, nor can the RC car Toy-Con accessories antenna be attached to the Nintendo Switch 2 console, so it will differ from the original game experience. And then Game Builder's Garage is getting an update for mouse control, so that's like a weird one where like you can use the IR motion camera in Game Builder Garage if you use a original Joy-Con, but then if you're using new Joy-Cons, you can do mouse stuff. It's weird. That's weird. And so that list hasn't changed because that's all just like hardware-based stuff that is, fundamentally fundamental. But then they've got a list of, they got 3 separate lists here. Games with startup issues on Switch 2, games that are playable but have some in-game compatibility issues, and games with issues that are planned to be addressed by launch or shortly after. Games with startup issues is such a vague thing to say, because what does that mean? Does that mean I cannot play it at all because it doesn't start up properly? Or is it just like, well, I don't know, the screen is black for 5 seconds and then it then it works? I don't know. The list of games with startup issues is the largest. I'm sorry, yes, the games with startup issues is the largest of the 3 lists. It includes a lot of Arcade Archives games. So if you want to play Burger Time on a Switch 2, it has startup issues, whatever that means. And it's on all of these, it just says this issue is being investigated. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's going to stay. YouTube has startup issues. Soul Dog TD has startup issues. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer has startup issues. Onigo Hunter has startup issues. I got all excited. I was like, oh, did someone make a game where you hunt and kill Oingo Boingo? Because that speaks to me in a very real way. But no, it's Kemco's Onigo Hunter. It would need to be fans of Oingo Boingo. It wouldn't need to be the band itself. They did nothing wrong. Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition has startup issues. Nier Automata, The End of Yorha Edition has startup issues. Kill La Kill If has startup issues. Final Fantasy has startup issues. Grid Autosport has startup issues. Darksiders Genesis has startup issues. And the list goes on and on. Games that are playable but have some in-game compatibility issues. Again, no detail on what this means. And all of them just say, it's being investigated. This is a much shorter list that includes Alan Wake Remastered, Alien Isolation, Arcade Archives, Tetris The Absolute, The Grandmaster 2 Plus, Godlike Burger, Hitman 3 Cloud version, That's the one you play as Cloud. He's got it's hard to kill people with that big sword stealthily, but it's satisfying when you do it. Hot Wheels Unleashed. Steven Universe Save the Light. Stumble Guys. Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Edition. Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. Fall Guys has in-game compatibility issues. So, I mean, that's some, those are some relatively popular games, I would say. Fall Guys. Stumble Guys. If you are into falling or stumbling, you might need to keep your Switch 1. I don't know. Again, we have no detail on what this means. It just has some in-game compatibility issues. And then there's a list of games with issues that are planned to be addressed by launch or shortly after. Which all it says is... Oh, well, yeah. It says planned to be resolved via an update. For all of these, except for Fortnite. What's the plan for Fortnite? A Nintendo Switch 2 version is planned. So their solution is get the right Fortnite. Get the one for this one, dummy. Which I think is what that was how it worked when the PS5 came out, right? You can't run PS4 Fortnite on a PS5, or was it PS4 to PS4 Pro? There was some version of Fortnite that they were just like, download the right one. So these are games with issues that they say will be addressed at launch or shortly after. Doom Eternal, Arcade Archives, Neo Geo, The King of Fighters 95. And I'm just giving you a selection. These lists are longer than this. I'm just kind of calling out. NBA 2K25, Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered, Jackbox Party Pack 1 and 2, Victor Vran Overkill Edition, World of Tanks Blitz, Slayin' 2, Pizza Tower, and so on. Eggy Party. That's right. Eggy Party. So, yeah, I mean, like the lists are weirdly long, but also when taken against the entirety of the Switch catalog, a pretty low percentage of games with issues. And we'll see if they resolve more of these. The list of games with startup issues is like, I don't know. None of them are that long. But if you wanted to play Warface Clutch on a Switch 2, or Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, or What the Dub, it would be nice to have a little bit more information about what this means. Because I think I own Arcade Archives Dig Dug on the Switch. What if I wanted to play it? Can I? It has startup issues. What does that mean? Yes, what about Meme Run? That's the question on everybody's lips. What about Meme Run? Unfortunately, the Switch 1 or 2 does not play Wii U software, so we're all asked out on that one, except for me. I've got Meme Run installed on my Wii U, still, as I have since it was released, before it got pulled down. Me. I'm always ready to play Meme Run. It's such a good game. NetherRealm has announced that there will be no more new content for Mortal Kombat 1. Which is being framed as this, like, I can't believe they're doing this. But they put out 2 seasons of characters. They put out a story DLC. They put out a fair amount of costumes and shit. It's not, I don't know. Like, people are like, they said they would support it for years. And what they are saying is they will continue to support Mortal Kombat 1 through balance adjustments and fixes. So I guess I didn't. How many more characters were you expecting there to? Again, they did 2 seasons worth of characters. They did all their guest characters. Their characters that they add to these games are never great in the first place because they do so many fucking guest characters instead of the Mortal Kombat characters you actually want. So I don't know. Like there's the reaction to this has been like, this is disappointing. I can't believe, and I was like, I don't know, like this, they put out quite a bit of content for it. They put out at least as much as they do. I know there was some quote that said that they would support it for years to come, but again, they're saying that they will continue to patch and balance it as needed. So what did you think it meant? Did you think it meant that there was going to be like 9 seasons of characters and what, NetherRealm ships games on a somewhat regular basis. It's not like Street Fighter where they stretch it out. Like that studio is probably deep in on another game. So I don't know, man. Were you really like, I like Mortal Kombat 1, but I guess I just don't know what the expectations were with this. Did you think it was going to have new characters right up until their next game came out or something? Or what? I don't know. That game feels like a game that came out. They put out some good update. Like the story DLC was fine. They added their stuff. They sold it as a Game of the Year edition bundle thing. Whatever the definitive, whatever we're calling them now, that we don't just call them all Game of the Year edition. And whatever. Time to move on. I don't know. I don't know. That's and so there's been some speculation. And so they framed this as, we are working on our next game. The quote is, "We understand this will be disappointing for fans, but our team at NetherRealm needs to shift focus to the next project in order to make it as great as we possibly can." So yeah, I don't know. They put out a thing called Definitive Edition that felt like a pretty clear signal. Like, hey, this is all the content. It's definitive. So I don't know. I am, Mortal Kombat 1 is not my favorite Mortal Kombat game, but it was cool. And they put out the stuff. So I don't know. Do you think they will make Injustice 3? That has been the, all of the stories around this, Eurogamers included. Eurogamer says here, as for that next project, well, no one's entirely sure, but it's widely thought to be Injustice 3. I think that's distinctly possible. And, we'll see. That was the thing that was always kind of up in the air because of just, and it's not that they're not now. I would say that maybe Warner Brothers has never been more of a shit show than they are right now, probably, just as a company. But again, there was a good era there where, Warner Brothers wasn't even sure if they were going to stay in the games business or they were going to sell it all off or whatever. And so, that was the thing that was always clouding over the idea of an Injustice sequel. It was like, oh, well, if Warner's going to sell NetherRealm off to, I don't know, Microsoft, somebody, then they wouldn't have access to the DC characters anymore unless they did a specific, so it would be less likely that you would ever see an Injustice 3. Now it's, seems entirely possible that could be what they would be working on. I think that's not the worst idea in the world. Maybe we will finally get the grid. Maybe the grid will finally exist. We will finally see a proper and true reboot of the grid. I would be very interested to see what that would look like in this day and age. So yeah, I guess my what I'm saying is I don't think it's necessarily guaranteed that they will do Injustice 3. I would like to see them do Injustice 3. I thought those, even as someone who's not a comic book guy, like I thought that those were cool games. I think the story, like the NetherRealm style of story mode applies, it like works really well for the Injustice games, I felt. They had neat ideas around armor and stuff, obviously, that they moved away from in Mortal Kombat and didn't really stick with the gear and some of the other things that that they thought they wanted to do there. But I wonder if they would do anything along those lines. Probably not. Skins just make more sense from a business perspective. But yeah, I don't know. I think that would be cool to, you know, like, I don't know where the story got left off in Injustice 2, if there's just like, if there's a high octane finale awaiting us in the Injustice trilogy or something. If it's just like, Superman is so evil, we've got to kill him, or whatever it is. I think that would be fine. Back to block, baby. Back to block is back. The block button. Throw it out. It's Injustice 3 time. Why not? Because what else would they do? I don't know. Like, I think that obviously Mortal Kombat 1 to me feels like that bridge game of, okay, it's time for something new. Mortal Kombat 1 feels like they have extended out this era of Mortal Kombat just about as long as they could. And I think that I don't know. I really like what they do with Mortal Kombat, and I really like what they do with the stories, and I really like what they've done with the time, you know, all of the multiverse goofs that they've had in these last couple of games, I think have been really cool. And I think those games play well. And so I don't have a good answer as to like what needs to change with them from a gameplay perspective. I just feel that like continuing down this road, I don't think gets them much at this point with Mortal Kombat. And so I don't know what you do there. You know, you can't really just reboot it again, because they've rebooted it inside of reboots. You know, they've used their time traveling multiverse universe stuff to do all kinds of insane stuff. And I think they've taken that about as far as it can go, with the possible exception of like the actual reboot that totally redraws all of the characters' origins and everything. Like, you know, the stuff that they allude to where like Johnny Cage is a lady in a part of that game, you know, where they're just like, what if we do this? Like, if they actually just did that and that was the main game, and they're just like, here's this, and now Scorpion's a hot lady avenging her husband's murder or whatever. But even that, I think that you kind of get limited. There's not that much juice left in all of that stuff. I think the world in which we live has been multiversed to death. And I think that they probably just need to lay down something else, something new. Injustice, or you know, a game that is not Mortal Kombat will give them a chunk of time to figure out what that is, if they don't already know. Maybe they do. They're smarter than I am. They think about Mortal Kombat in a different way than I do, because I think about it and go like, they should put Stryker in it because he's just got a gun. They think a lot more. But at the same time, you know, like, also I think Warner as a company is in a really weird place. And they've said as much, right? I mean, they went through all those layoffs and they were just like, it's going to take us a couple of years to figure out what the fuck is going on over here. I think it will take them more than a couple of years to truly figure that out. NetherRealm, at least, is a studio that, you know, look, man, they were part of Midway. They've dealt with worse than whatever the fuck is happening at Warner Brothers. I'm sure of it. Like, someone's just going like, well, I mean, I don't like David Zaslav. I mean, he's not Neil Nicastro, though. I mean, at least he's not that. I mean, he's not that fucking, Jesus Christ, you know. So if any studio is going to be able to still thrive inside of a challenging corporate environment, I would count on NetherRealm to find a way to get it done. Because of all the fucking weird shit that they've been through, and you know, like, there's a lot of folks there that are still there from when that shit happened. So Yeah, I don't know, man. It's an interesting thought problem, interesting mind puzzle to work your way through. Is like, what do you do with Mortal Kombat at this point? Man, I don't know. And that's why it's a perfect time to make the grid. And that's why it's the perfect time to make the grid. Except for the part where, like, you know, I think it's a really tough market for any kind of shooter. You know, obviously a very crowded space. And I think that, you know, what is the grid? If we really think about, break it down, what's the grid? The grid is a colorful esports like futuristic game show third person shooter. You can play it first person, but you know, it is that Smash TV future game show style, except it's a shooter, and they give the characters some special moves that are not always gun related. You know, you've got like Liu Kang's kick is in there and shit. So there's some weird stuff around that you could play with. But really, like, what does that translate to in modern terms? That's a hero shooter, right? Like, if you've got character specific abilities and they're on something resembling a cooldown timer, like, you're kind of making some form of hero shooter. The grid was different than a lot of those hero shooters or a lot of kind of modern shooters because it was not necessarily always a team game. It did have modes for that, if I remember right, when you linked all the cabinets together and everything. But by and large, that was a game you played alone and played, you know, kind of every man for himself, deathmatch style matches. And so how do you translate that into something in 2026? You know, if you're really thinking about the grid and what you would do with the grid in a continually challenging environment, keeping in mind that in 2026, there will also probably be a new Battlefield game. Yeah, I don't know. It's you know, yeah, guest characters. Yeah, guest characters is like a good NetherRealm style answer, but also that's what Fortnite does. So, how do you what I'm getting to here is how do you make a game that stands out on its own and isn't just chasing after Fortnite money, because I don't think anyone is going to get enough of a slice of that right now to make that work. I don't think you're gonna launch a new shooter that's gonna take on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that would be a pathway to long-term success. Anyway, we'll see. Or maybe we get Injustice 3. I think that would be a fine answer as well. Yeah, Nirikip says Genshin Impact, but it's Mortal Kombat. Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you do some kind of big adventure game with the Mortal Kombat universe. Like, that's always been cool. You know, people always say they want a new Shaolin Monks. I mean, that was not them that did that game, but yeah, people always say that they want a new Shaolin Monks. And so some kind of Mortal Kombat action adventure game. I would take, like, if you really wanted to do some kind of Mortal Kombat action adventure sort of thing, I would probably, I think it would be really neat to have Rocksteady make that game. I would have also said it would be cool to have seen Monolith make that game, but hey, but yeah, yes, something like Death by Degrees. If ever you're pitching a game, if ever you're saying, you know what they should do, and anywhere in your sentence is, so, something like Death by Degrees, you're on the right track. You're on the pathway to financial success. But I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could do. we'll see where that goes. There's been some rumors about this for a while, and it has been confirmed that there's going to be an Elden Ring movie, and it will be written and directed by a guy named Alex Garland for a company called A24, who every time I see A24, I confuse it with the Andreessen Horowitz creeps, because they always abbreviate their name to A26Z or whatever. But A24 is a movie. I looked. The only A24 is a movie company. They make movies, I guess. The only movie that A24 has produced or whatever that I have seen is a little film called Spring Breakers. And so if this Elden Ring movie is like Spring Breakers, but with way more weird finger talk, that could be cool. I don't know. Alex Garland made Warfare, Civil War, Men, Annihilation, and Ex Machina, according to Deadline Hollywood. Or I guess this is Deadline. According to Deadline. I played a fair amount of Elden Ring. That's sure. Why not? I guess. I don't know. Like could you make an Elden Ring movie? Sure you could. Is that something that needs to happen? I don't know, but we now live in a world where the Minecraft movie has done quite well, and the Mario movie has done quite well. The Sonic films have done quite well. We've heard about all the Sega properties being licensed out or optioned off for movies, whether those happen or not. Like video games as television show. I was gonna say The Last of Us, but it seems like people are extremely angry at The Last of Us television show now. For what okay. We're just gonna see more of this, right? And Elden Ring obviously sold enough units to get a very high profile, and so it makes sense that it would be optioned out, or this one looks like it'll actually happen, right? I mean, now it's got a bunch of companies and human beings attached to it in a more realistic way, and so presumably an Elden Ring movie happens. Of course, like when? Like there's no date here. Right? Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, there's no date attached to this, but it sounds like the movie is not written. George R.R. Martin, I guess, is listed as a producer on this. So Peter Rice is set to produce alongside Andrew McDonald and Alan Reich from DNA, as well as George R.R. Martin and Vince Gerardis. Okay. That's cool. I mean, it's George R.R. Martin. It needs more things that he can like put his name on that gives him cover as to why he can't finish books. So this seems perfect for that. Much like Elden Ring Night Rain, it will be a 3-character. No, that's out. That Night Rain thing is out in a couple of days. That's another game. This is again kind of the I'm not like I would not say that I am uninterested in Elden Ring as a concept. It was not something that was like my top game of the year or whatever. It felt like a pretty good one of those, and then I sort of drifted away from it. But I feel like what I looked to see. I have received 0 press releases or anything from Namco about that guy. Like Namco must have like taken a look at like, who are we going to send out information about Night Rain to? And they went, not that fucking dude. So I don't. I know people have been playing it for review. I don't have it. It's fine. I will probably take a look at it once it's out to see what's up with it. And but that's the Night Rain thing feels like a thing that I don't feel like there's been for a game that was as big as Elden Ring was, and for as big as the launch of the Elden Ring DLC was. This feels like it is not like this feels like not slipping through the cracks is maybe a little extreme. But this does not quite feel like it has been treated as like, hey, check it out, man. The next Elden Ring thing is coming. Probably because it's a multiplayer thing. And, like I know that network test was a little divisive. And so I think people are looking at it and going like, some people are definitely side-eyeing it. But I'm curious to see how it does. I'm very curious to see. Because the idea of a multiplayer focused Elden Ring game or like this style of game in a multiplayer context just seems very weird. And then obviously they did they announced the other game for Switch 2, Duskbloods, and that's a multiplayer thing as well. So like From Software being like, oh fuck it, man, we're gonna see if we can figure out a way to make this thing more online. These types of games, if we could find ways to make them work as multiplayer things. I mean, it doesn't strike me as the way people really want to play these games. I think people want the multiplayer, like summon a guy thing. I think people like that as like a fun option or whatever. And it leads to some interesting stories about like, oh, this guy is always camping outside this boss. And so you can always call him in to help you fight, and he's there. What a good friend, like it leads to those fun, weird stories. But I feel like the vast majority of people who are interested in these types of games, the From Software style, the Souls-like, if you will, they want to stay up all night playing them alone and fucking losing their minds about it, right? Like that's like, you're not there to like, me and my buddy got online to play some Elden Ring. No, you are like fucking locking yourself in a room. You are figuring out, you are getting as much stink on you as possible. And you are fucking locking in. You are gaming the fuck out. You are gaming the fuck up, bro. You are showing up to work on Monday and they're saying, what did you do over the weekend? And you are like, hung out with, did the thing. With the move. I definitely showered. I absolutely took showers. Like that's how people want to play these games. People want to pay people to level up their character. Randy Orton wants to have a powerful Elden Ring character. But Randy Orton is a busy guy. Anyway, Night Rain's out in a couple days. So not long to wait to see how that all goes. And this is a story from minutes after last week's podcast. Fortnite reappeared on Apple devices, the iPhone, if you will. Last week we had talked about how Apple was dragging their feet on it seemingly and said like, oh, well, the developer account was canceled in the US. And so if you resubmit this without the US part, then this and that. And then Epic went and, tried to publicly cry about that. I don't know what happened here exactly, or who blinked or whatever happened, but not long after last week's podcast, Fortnite reappeared on the Apple App Store. And then it made its way to the top spot. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know. Where are the charts these days on the App Store here? What we're playing right now, Roblox, appears to be the Yeah, I don't see Fortnite anywhere on the popular games list. It is not on the must play list. It is not on the what we're playing now list. So I'm, unsurprisingly, I would think that editorially, which Apple does have an editorial team that, programs the storefront and picks the spots where the games go for a lot of those lists and the top slots and whatever. Like, obviously you would never see Fortnite show up in those, but I would assume on like various charts and things that it would still show up there in some capacity, but not currently, not from the looks of things. More importantly, Puzzmo came out on phones, which is what is that? That's like the New York Times puzzle thing. And Puzzmo is pretty good. So you can play that on phones now, which is cool because I was just forgetting it existed as something that was only in the browser. So yeah, there you have it. And that's the news. Why don't we get into some emails? podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Yes, Puzzmo is the thing that Zach Gage works on. It's like partnered with the New York Times. Or if it's not the New York Times, it is another newspaper, but it is something where they have definitely teamed with something. Yeah, is it not the Times? Anyway, they have partnered with some newspaper as a part of that. It is something that, like, when they first launched it, it was like, we're just some guys making puzzles, and you're like, oh, you're also backed by like this other thing. It's kind of okay, all right. But that's whatever. Puzzmo's awesome. podcast@guard.bike is the email address for you to send in emails to me, and I will read them as I'm about to do, as I'm just filtering through stuff here. Ian writes in and asks about Police Quest 4. At the time, late 1993, do you remember any controversy regarding Police Quest 4 bringing in LAPD Chief Daryl Gates of 1992 LA riots fame to be a part of the game? Maybe it's a reflection of where public sentiment was when the game launched, but given the recency of the riots and the wildly racist plot in that game, it feels like heavily featuring a disgraced cop should have been extremely controversial. I've never played the game myself, but reading about it is quite nuts. It was fucking crazy. Yes, absolutely. The idea that they went out and said, we've secured the rights to put Daryl fucking Gates on the cover of Police Quest was fucked. Was absolutely, it was just like, you did what? You got that asshole from the fucking, are you fucking kidding me? But yes, that is exactly what they did. Not long after all of the Rodney King riots and everything that happened, and Daryl Gates was, a straight up fucking villain, they put him on the cover of Police Quest, which I think tells you, when you think about policing and you think about what you do in the Police Quest games, you look at it going, yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess so. I guess maybe that's what Police Quest always was, wasn't it? So yes, that was a very big deal. It was fucking nuts when that happened. So yes, it was completely fucking crazy. Small scale first party AAA, writes Ben in Canada. Says, coming off the recent question on why so many companies are going for games as a service and not AAA single player games, I have a follow-up question. With the success of indie games like Vampire Survivors and Balatro, why don't large companies put some money behind projects that are around that scope? Looking at some estimates on how much those two and other indie breakouts made, it would seem crazy to not invest in a bunch of small games the way the film industry funds cheap horror films. Could Sony make a first-party Flappy Bird? So, I mean, yes, but like also the stakes are so different for games of that nature. The idea that if they placed 20 of those bets and one of those games broke through, would that one game net them as much as a truly breakthrough service game? Maybe, but maybe not. And the things that make those games big are not things you can easily duplicate. When we look at the smash hit breakthrough, like what is to be learned from that? And you know, this is something for GDC panels and things of that nature. But like, if you look at the success of Vampire Survivors, if you look at the success of Balatro, what can you truly learn from those situations that you could then duplicate to give yourself a leg up in making another one? Because ultimately, it's people don't want another one. You know, you can't just look at those trends and chase them infinitely. Vampire Survivors made a lot of money, but also afterwards, a zillion different games like that came out that were not as big as that game. And Vampire Survivors was not even the first one of those. It was just the one to break through. It's a great game. I'm not saying that as a way to take away from what that game is. But it's not something that you can immediately go like, oh, well, okay. Here's the blueprint for making an indie-sized game that then goes on to make $1 trillion. And it's not always going to be marketing. You know, like studios, you know, PlayStation, you know, in the early days of digital downloads of Xbox Live Arcade and PSN games and all of that on the PS3, like Sony definitely published a lot of smaller games. I mean, you know, Housemarque cut its teeth on consoles anyway, after their Amiga days, making pretty successful smaller games. But it's not what, you know, like the big companies like to place big bets because it's what they do. They have the resources to place these big bets, and that's what they do. And so I think making a bunch of, and you know, I think there's a case to be made for making some mid-sized games, I will tell you. When we talk about the, you know, you want to call them AA games, go ahead. But, you know, the kind of the slightly smaller tier games, I think there are cases to be made for that situation where, you know, if you make some of those and they can kind of break through and do okay and turn a profit, and enough of them turn a profit, then you're still okay and whatever else. But no one's in this business to do okay. They're in this business for fucking hockey stick growth, bro. We're in this business for mad commissions and fucking doing fucking lines of coke off the toilet tank every Thursday night, bro. Like, this is what we're here for. We're not here to fucking eke out an existence, you know? We're here to either get laid off or make $1 million, bro. So, you know, it's just not how the larger end of any industry really works. But also, I think you're saying like, oh man, like you're saying, look at Vampire Survivors and Balatro. Why don't they just do that? You fucking can't. Look at how many indie games come out all the time. Every single day, you have got someone with $1 and a dream trying to launch their game, trying to get their game in front of people, struggling because they think they have a great game and they want to get it in front of people and try to fucking, you know, like make it work. And it's hard. You can make a great game, but if no one hears about it, you know, it still fails, right? We want to think that like, oh, great games, the cream rises to the top, and you know, like this is all going to work. You know, you want to believe that a great game will find its audience no matter what, but that's just not always the case. You know, and I think we all have examples of games that we've loved that have, you know, in some cases been shut down because they are service games, or you know, small indie games that you just look at and go like, man, more people should play this. And for whatever reason they don't. Like, I can't tell you about the size of it per se, but I will say in terms of like, you know, how how infrequently I heard it spoken about. Like, I wonder how well Mini Shoot Adventures did. It's overwhelmingly positive. It has over 5,000 reviews. It's about a year old now. It's about 13 months old now. That's a hell of a game. And I feel like other than me talking about it and whoever told me about it from this chat, and I went and told other people about it and so on, I have not really heard, I know other people have played it because I see people on my Steam friends list have checked it out, and, like it made the rounds. I wonder how well it did. You want to think it did gangbusters because it's a fucking hell of a game. But I don't know, I don't know that it sold as many copies as it probably should have for how good it is. But yeah, there's a zillion reasons. Like, people in the chat right now are saying, "Oh, I forgot to play it." Like, yeah, that happens. Like, there are so many games coming out all the time. That the very idea, it's like there are so many great games that you're like, "Oh man, I should check this out," that you just never get around to. And so forget, hearing about a game. Like, plenty of people have heard about a game that then don't go on to play it. They go like, "Oh man, that sounds like it's right up my alley." Anyway, I've got to get on. I've got to log in and do my dailies over it. Like they're playing other shit. So what do you do? There are so many reasons why a game fails to break through or doesn't get every dollar it probably deserves, I guess, is maybe the way to put it. Cauldron feels like a game that could very easily fall into that. We were talking about Cauldron earlier. Like, I think that's a really cool game and more people should check it out. It's a little esoteric in some ways. And I go like, this game isn't necessarily for everybody, but it's pretty cool. I wonder how well that will do. I don't know. If Bryn hadn't told me about it, I probably never would have heard about it ever. And so the ways we hear about games are just fucking broken. And there are fewer and fewer people out there covering video games all the time. And so, like, that part of the process, that part of the discovery is breaking even further as time goes on. So it's a bad situation. And so it's not as easy because, it's not as easy as just like, well, Sony could muscle in there and I'm sure they could market it and I'm sure they could get it in front of people and they could do this. Sony has marketed plenty of indie games that they have done, PlayStation Plus deals with or whatever. Microsoft as well. There have been plenty of situations where, they've had a vested interest in promoting a game, whether they, are publishing and developing it or whatever, but like, it's not just marketing anymore. Because a lot of that experience is broken too. What does marketing mean? It means buying ads. It means, buying situations where the people are going to talk about the game. But even then, everyone blocks ads everywhere they can these days. So you're seeing fewer and fewer ads all the time. Or more and more worse ads. I don't know, man. Like, it's broken. And so, you see sponsored short form video, and on TikTok, I've seen a lot of video from Microsoft. I've seen a lot of Xbox videos on TikTok. And it's like the worst shit, dude. It all comes from I think it all comes from their account. I don't know if they're actually sponsoring individuals to post this stuff, but it's always like some guy going it's always some guy doing like fucking streamer voice. Hey guys, I don't know if you know this, but there's something cool. It's Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation, and it's like this, it's an ad for Forza, but it is the guy doing a hey guys presentation of it. It's the what's up guys, fucking gamer dick here for you. This car game is good, or whatever. And I just I tune out on that voice, whether it's an ad or not, because it just sounds like an ad either way. It doesn't. I mean, it's just like those things just sound like ads no matter what. But yeah, I think it's really hard to it's hard to break through. It's hard to find ways to get in front of people, and I think that a lot of indie developers are struggling on that part of the process, on every part of the process, right? Making a great game is hard too. So if you could just throw money at that problem and solve all of it, then publishers would have more of a reason to exist than they do right now, right? I mean, if publishers could just market indie games to make them smash hits, then that would just happen all the time. But publishers are kind of lost in a way too. You know, they're trying to figure out like what is the right way to get this game in front of people and do all this. I get stuff all day long, man. I get emails all day long about games I have never heard of. That I can't. There are a ton of games that I simply just don't get to. Whether they just, it's a lot of stuff that like the subject line of the email, just right out of the gate, I'm just looking at it and they're just like cozy deck builder. And I'm like, word, dude, I'm done. Like, okay, good. Next email. Like I'm okay. It's just, there's just some stuff I'm gonna if I'm gonna find that game and enjoy it, it's not gonna be from reading this press release about it. I'm gonna have to have heard word of mouth about it from someone who goes like, no, really though, this cozy deck builder actually is for you. And like, okay, well, I guess I'll give it a look. Because there's just so much. Battle Aces just got shut down. If you've heard of Battle Aces, I'm going to say you probably haven't. I have about a year of emails about Battle Aces. Going back to last year's Summer Games Fest. Oh no, the PC Gaming Show had a 4-minute gameplay segment. The PC Gaming Show in June of 2024 had a 4-minute gameplay segment detailing the innovative gameplay mechanics of Battle Aces, a new action RTS game for PC that aims to redefine the genre. And then it was like they're offering a beta key, and they're offering, and then like it's in October, the next beta phase was announced, and then there was a new closed beta in November, and another new beta phase in November, and then a new beta phase starting April 16th of this year, and then they started that beta phase in April 17th, and then last week they shut it down. Or the development has ended. Today, with deep regret, we are announcing that development on Battle Aces has come to an end. Creating Battle Aces has been tremendously rewarding, and we are grateful. It was a real-time strategy game of sorts. My understanding is that their idea for RTS was to kind of take the base building out of it a little bit, and which just sounds like a MOBA at that point. But no, it was more like, if I'm right, it was like they did kind of a deck builder approach to the base building aspect or something. I remember looking at it and going like, that's not, yeah, it was one of the 30,000 different, this game came from ex-Blizzard people games. It was one of those. I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, this is not like I like to do all the I like to do all that stuff. So replacing it with other stuff is not. That is not for me." And so yeah. So the game technically never made it out of like closed beta. Like they had a closed beta that was April 16th, and then a little over a month later. They're just saying development has come to an end, and that's it. It never fully launched on Steam, so there was not, this is not a refund situation or anything like that. It's just, that's it for Battle Aces. They have decided not to finish it. Which I think the thing to say there is this is a very brutal business these days, and so big games, small games, games that have the backing of publishers and games that don't, and it's just a very, It's a very crazy thing. This was 10 cent. So maybe this is part of this is they're not doing the sort of numbers that 10 cent needs, because 10 cent feels like they're in a very weird place. I think like more and more of the kind of Chinese money or some of that money that's coming into the market feels like it's being reassessed. And so, yeah, like all of these 10 cent games, who knows? Right. Sham Pipple D writes in and says, your unexpected and quite frankly shocking dismissal of Power Stone during your discussion of the latest Capcom fighting collection as being unworthy of mention because I'm not a 12-year-old will not stand. If you have beef with it in some way, let's hear it. I can't believe someone who has spent time seriously considering if Wally Bear and the No Gang is better than Alfred Chicken can be so dismissive of a genuine classic Dreamcast gem. I'll say the same thing I said on Blue Sky. Power Stone is basically a Mario Party minigame. That's it. That's the level of depth it has. Not much more than that. It's like someone tried to turn a Mario Party minigame into a full thing, and it's like fun twice. And that's it. It just doesn't have much more going for it. It's not to say it's not fun, but again, it's like 15 minutes fun. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, we did the thing. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Oh, you kicked me and I dropped the gem. Oh yeah. Oh, this time I got the gems and now it's like I can shoot rockets or whatever. Look at that. Look at this hammer. Yay. Yeah, this is Power Stone. Whatever. You could play it. But again, it's like, might as well be a Mario Party game. Or rather, it feels like it's like someone looked at a Mario Party game and said, let's add some more features to this to try to flesh it out a little bit. But only a little bit. Drazy writes in and says, what are your hopes and concerns for the 007 game that IO Interactive is working on? It seems like ever since GoldenEye, James Bond games have only been developed as action-packed shooters first and sneaky spy stuff second. With IO's Hitman background, I'm hoping they find a sweet spot between the confident, smooth-talking personality James Bond is known for, as well as a nice sprinkle of shooting dudes with spy shit. Yeah, yes. I think that IO Interactive to me seems like the perfect studio to work on a James Bond game, because I think that what Hitman is capable of as an engine and crowd work and all of that stuff, I do think that not one-to-one, you probably shouldn't see James Bond throwing a fucking homing briefcase that, or dropping explosive ducks or whatever, right? Like there's a different tone for sure. But I do think that the basic structural bones of Hitman and what Hitman does is a great foundation for what a James Bond game could be. But I do think, like if you go look at the Bond films and you go look at how James Bond is often represented, right? There is, you have vehicle sequences, right? You've got like, oh, he's driving a car off a cliff and he's jumping out of it. This car fell out of a plane. Shit. He's jumping out of a plane and landing in a car. He's fucking this car, whatever it is. Like, there's stuff, right? He's driving this car and there's ice. Like there's stuff alongside the stuff that I think it would be cool if you could represent it. And I think that works out really well when you can do it right. So I think you need to represent that end of it. I think you need to figure out, like, again, it's not necessarily always James, like it's not just going to be Hitman walk around a big environment and kind of get up to what you get up to. I think you have scenarios that are like that, but that can't be the entire game. You probably need more action. You probably need like a different, I would not want to do all my shooting from the Hitman perspective, I guess is what I would say there. In situations where it's like, okay, this is going to be a full-on action sequence, I would want it to feel meaningfully different than in Hitman when you just decide to shoot a bunch of dudes. I think you need gadgets. I think you need to find a way to make gadgets that are not just combat items, that are not just there for stealth kills. Because, in Hitman, almost everything was in service of, yo, man, you made that dude die good. Or you poisoned him so he walked over here so you could stab him or whatever. And so I think you need a wider array of like, I guess the other thing I would say about gadgets is when you look at the gadgets that James Bond typically has at his disposal, doesn't he just use most of them to either open doors or kill people or access computers? Right? It's a gadget, and I hooked it up to a computer to hack the computer, and now I can open these doors. Or it's a gadget that I put in this lock, and it turns and spins and looks all crazy, and then the gadget unlocks the doors. So it's it's not always, the gadgets of James Bond are not always used in the deepest and craziest ways, right? It's all just kind of a means to do a thing of like, I did this and it scanned a thing, and then now we have the security clearance we need to do this, or now that I took a picture of this man's face, we can make a rubber mask. I mean, that's more Mission Impossible, but you get my point. The gadgets are not like, the gadgets are over the top and ridiculous, but ultimately a lot of them are in service of, whatever, gaining access to a thing, doing something secret, stealing something, right? And a lot of that ends up getting represented in video games as you walked up to a thing and you held down the X button for like 6 seconds. And then the animation was him taking his watch and pointing it at a thing, or he pulled a thing out from behind his ear and it was an antenna and he attached it to this and then did, or whatever. But like ultimately, or it's an ejection seat on a car, right? So I think, that when you think about the possibility space of James Bond, it is both wider and narrower than you think, right? The gadgets are not always used in crazy ways that are not things you do in a video game. It's just different ways to do the thing you do in a video game. But then you've also got like, okay, there is this definite style of action here that if you just did it in the Hitman engine thing, it wouldn't necessarily work right. And then he's a smooth talker or whatever, right? I mean, that was always the silly thing about James Bond, is he just fucking walks around telling people his name, Never once, does someone ask James Bond his name? He goes, it's Carol. Dave Carol. Carol. I would love a sandwich. It's like it's James Bond walking around being James Bond and getting away with it. So there is a brazenness to him always that for whatever reason works. He's never hiding his face. People know. Hey man, did you know that James Bond just showed up in our illegal casino? Did he? What's he doing? Gambling? Oh, it's probably nothing then. Like, no, you dumb motherfucker. Anyway. So yeah, I think that there are aspects of the character that you could not immediately represent with all of the tools that Hitman has, and so I think that there's room for them to do more. And I'm curious to see what they do with it. I'm really curious to see what they do with it. Thomas from Sydney writes in and says, having recently realized how low the barrier to entry is for retro gaming with an R36S, I've been replaying Rygar for the Atari Lynx. I tried some of the others, but this version is the one that hits for me. What style of game would you want to see from a modern Rygar? I'd like to see it as something of a Hades-like. Modern Rygar. I mean, they did a PS2 Rygar game, and then they ported that to the Wii. So I think those are the last. I believe those are the most recent Rygar games. The Atari Lynx version of Rygar is a port of the arcade game. It's a cool game. You run to the right and you kill shit, and it's fine. I think the NES version is one of the best games on that platform. And is much more of an open world kind of thing within reason. It's not vast, but and parts of it are fucked, but it is a great game. So I would want a Rygar game that represented that specific end of Rygar, the more kind of open-ended nature to it, as opposed to kind of an arcade, an arcade game sort of thing. Hades-like is not a bad idea. I think Rygar, especially if you take the camera perspective of a Hades, Rygar at some point just becomes a Captain America game because he's throwing the disc armor out and hitting people with it, and maybe it's bouncing between some people or whatever as you upgrade it. So I think that could work reasonably well. I wouldn't mind seeing a game that maintained the side-scrolling approach to it, though. So yeah, I think that, if you kept it as a side scroller, kept it as kind of an open world, maybe it becomes a little bit more recognizable as a Metroidvania, because that's basically what it is. There are items you need to proceed, that you don't have at the outset of the game, so you need to go get stuff so you can go more places, so you can get to Garlaws, so you can fight Ligar. Damn it. And so I think, you could probably do some more work along those lines and make a really cool side-scrolling Rygar game that would work in a Metroidvania type container. That said, I think that form of game has been just about beaten to death, and we need to take more of a Metroidvania break. So maybe now would not be the right time for that style of game, but I think that could work. I think that could be a decent thing. Grant writes in and says, Shoot Mania. It was battle royale. It had wall running and launch pads. It was really fast. Plus it had one-hit kills with rail guns. Why was this game not more popular? Like Trackmania Canyon, to me, clearly far superior to Stadium, and yet no one played it. Yeah, Shoot Mania, I think part of it was just Shoot Mania didn't look cool. Shoot Mania, the act of connecting to a server and doing all that, it was just strange. It was always funky. And I think that always held it back. It felt more like a toolbox than a proper game a lot of the time. And don't get me started on Questmania, because I'm not even sure if they ever got started on Questmania. Yeah, I don't know. Shoot Mania was neat. Let's see here. Keith writes in and talks about a bunch about heat pumps, which I have a heat pump now. And he talks about rebates. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'll get a rebate. I'm not sure what the rebate situation is. The heat pump is nice. The only problem is that the vent in this room, which is probably because it's right next to the unit itself, is much louder. Like the unit itself is quieter, but the air coming out of this vent, too loud. So I'm hoping to get that vent replaced and with something that can handle the airflow differently or whatever. It was expensive, but the bills will supposedly drop in the long run. And, well, hopefully that's the case. Because I think a lot of the rebate and a lot of that situation has dried up a little bit, from where it was. Anyway, Keith did have something to say about video games. I've seen an uptick in SOCOM and older private servers for PS2 and PS3 games. I've also seen the Xbox Insignia project continuing to be updated. They even have Home running on a PS3. I fell down a rabbit hole of Project 99 for EverQuest and some other MMOs that are back up. Disney's MMO was back up and quickly shut down, and the City of Heroes secrecy of a friends and family private server was fascinating. I was curious if you've kept up with any new online emulation or private server projects and what your thoughts are. I know you've mentioned PSO private servers in years past. I personally like the preservation aspect and just letting folks see what it was like, especially someone like me who didn't have high-speed internet for a lot of those older games. Last I checked, the Matrix Online is running as far as maps and interactions and such, but no quests or combat yet. I think it's great. I think it's great when a community can kind of come together and make this work, right? When they can take these games and find ways to get them running again. I was reading this email when I was selecting it for the show, and it made me think, man, did anyone ever do a private server for Syndicate? And they did. There is currently a private server that will let you play Syndicate multiplayer again. It is a fork, weirdly enough, of the Mass Effect 3 private server, which I guess someone made in order to, play the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer more. And it is janky. It apparently does not work if you are, like, you can't go in-game on the Xbox 360 with other players. It works well enough for you to connect to a server and play alone. When it comes to Syndicate in on the Xbox 360, but apparently on PC you can play Syndicate multiplayer with a private server. And so I was looking at the GitHub page for that and nodding my head and going, yeah, I should probably download this, I should probably look at this, The Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, I remember being okay. I just remember it being Loot Box City. It came out at a time when Loot Box City was the order of the day. And so it was like consumable items in some cases and getting weapons out of boxes and stupid shit like that. But it was an okay mode. I don't know. I would be open to playing a little bit more Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, Syndicate, being able to play Syndicate. I mean, I don't know if it would work. I imagine that they just unlock everything, because part of the fun of playing Syndicate's co-op mode was, you're leveling up, you're unlocking more stuff, you're becoming more, that part of that process was why you played those, or it was part of why you played those multiplayer maps over and over again. Either way, that multiplayer was a lot of fun. Let's see here. Todd from Edmonton writes in and says, hearing you talk about your kids developing an interest in gaming has left me questioning my own approach to kids and gaming, and maybe media in general. When do you let your kids have some unsupervised gaming time? I have memories of it being probably 5 or 6 years old and a cousin teaching me fatalities on the Genesis version of MK2. I played Duke Nukem when I was 9, went to LAN parties at 11 playing Unreal Tournament, and my parents had no problem with the sex and or violence. My gut says no way, follow the rating systems, but what kind of hypocrite would I be if I didn't give my kid a copy of GTA 3 for her 10th birthday? So the point of parenting, and it never works out this way, but the point of parenting is to be that hypocrite. Right? It is to try to do better than your parents did. Now, in the process of trying to do better than your parents did, you will fuck up in entirely different ways. Your children will be fucked up just in an entirely different way than you are. It doesn't mean they won't be fucked up, though. No one gets out alive. Unscathed, I guess I should say. So, my actual answer to this is it depends on your kids and what they're into and what you think they can handle. I think the rating system is a fine guide, but also, yeah, if you think your daughter is ready for a Grand Theft Auto game at 10 years old, I'm going to say that's maybe not an awesome idea. But I don't know your daughter. Maybe it's totally fine. I was raised with, I had, access to HBO and all this other stuff growing up, and, all of the violence and nudity and everything else. I remember I would get my parents to record movies when they were on. I would look at TV Guide of all things and go, oh, Revenge of the Nerds specifically. Like, oh, Revenge of the Nerds is coming on tonight. Can you tape it for me? And then, watching it, and then my parents getting home from work, and then it being on the scene in Revenge of the Nerds with full frontal nudity, and my mom seeing that and being like, well, if I had known, I remember her saying like, well, if I had known this is what you were having me record, I wouldn't have recorded it for you. But that was all it wasn't like she turned it all, it was just, she just said that, and that was that. I don't know. I grew up in a tire shop that, every one of the trucks in the tire shop had weird off-brand, porno magazines in it. So that's maybe not great, but that's how it went. And so, I'm trying to do differently for my children. I am not going to raise them around a bunch of porno mags, which I should probably find all those in the garage and get. And I got rid of them when we moved because they were all my roommates. He had an amazing collection. He subscribed to them anyway. But when it came time to move, I found them all, and I was like, "Hey, do you want these?" And he went, "Ooh, yeah, yes, I do." I was like, "Okay, all right, come get them." But yeah, man, I think that, you have to kind of look at, the violence. I mean, you say you were 11 years old playing Unreal Tournament and Duke Nukem at 9. Like, the violence in those games is so over the top and ridiculous that it's like, what is a 9-year-old going to be scarred for life seeing anything in Duke Nukem 3D? That level of graphical quality and whatever, like what are you going to learn from Duke Nukem 3D other than some bad language? Modern games, I think, are a lot more than that. I have played Mortal Kombat in front of my children, modern, current Mortal Kombat, not even old. And then realized like, oh, I can't do this. I can't actually. This is too. I can't actually do this. But like, they'll walk in and I'm, playing, like when Mortal Kombat 1 had first come out, and I'm like, playing it and covering it and doing stuff. Like, they're walking in the room and going, "What are you doing in here?" And I'm like, "I'm murdering this lady. You should probably not see this." Yeah, it's just like, so yeah, I don't know. That was a case where I drew a line. Would I let them? But I have let my daughter play like Virtua Fighter and Street Fighter and stuff that is, violent, but not graphically violent. And you could argue that that's a bad thing, showing, like, I don't want my daughter going to school and kicking people in the face. There's a couple of kids that could probably use it. Just a good kick in the fucking face. Honestly. But I probably shouldn't do this. I probably shouldn't show her a bunch of this, right? So yeah, I don't know. The unsupervised gaming, like I have let my daughter walk away with the Nintendo Switch because I know what games are on it, and she spends most of her time watching videos in the news section, and I know that Nintendo's news section is not going to have a bunch of M-rated games in it that she's going to encounter, right? So that felt okay because I knew basically what she would be able to get into in that context, and that was fine. So, though it did lead to her stumbling onto Sonic the Hedgehog, which is not great, which is just not great. And that's going to do it. Thanks everybody for writing in. Again, podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Send in an email and I will read it. Next week, big week. Big weird week, man. So yeah, that'll be like, so Thursday night I'm going to go get a Switch too. And then I might try to come back here and do a stream depending on how stuff goes. Friday the 6th is going to be Jeff Keighley's stream. They confirmed. Now don't act, don't act, make sure you act surprised when I tell you this. They have confirmed that Jeff Keighley is going to have Hideo Kojima at this thing. I know. I'm surprised too. So I'm going to watch that. I'll talk over that. And we'll do that on Friday. And then that weekend, I'm going to go see games. But Sunday will be Microsoft's thing. And I will watch that with you as well online. Right here. So yeah, that'll be the schedule for next week in addition to kind of the other kind of normal stuff going on. And yeah, and I'll be back tomorrow. We'll play some video games. I don't know, maybe we'll play some Splitgate or something. I don't know. See some video games. The Division 2 has a new expansion out, which I don't think I can access on PC, but because I think my character on Steam or my character on PC for the Division 2 is like level 5. But maybe I'll buy that expansion on PlayStation. Or I think all my stuff is on PlayStation. I don't know. But I'm not high level enough to probably even see the new stuff in there. But I don't know, man. It's yes, they released, what is it called? It's Brooklyn something. Battle for Brooklyn is apparently out now. Isn't that crazy? You would have thought that they would have had the Division 3 out by now. But here we are. Okay. I will see you tomorrow or next week for another edition of this podcast. Have a good one, and I will see you soon.